Hello, everybody, and I'm very glad to welcome you at Unicorn.Events Shorts. And today we invited Jim Thomas, a partner from Kirenaga Partners, such a great name. And thanks, Jim, for finding time to join us.
Great to be with you today.
How are you?
Doing well, doing well. It's a great day in Orlando, Florida.
Sounds cool. And just an interesting point about the name of your VC fund. Can you comment on that, please?
Yeah, it's a great. I can tell you the bigger story as we go along. But I met these guys about 6 years ago, and they had formed a firm up in the Northeast and around the New York area, and they named it Kirenaga, which is a Japanese term for staying ahead of the curve, or really like keeping the sword sharp. And so that's one of our mottos: is how do we stay on top of technology? How do we stay on top of the markets? And how do we make that all happen?
Great, such a rare name and such a challenge for me to find out how to pronounce it. That sounds cool.
You're not the only one.
Yeah, and now we're very curious to find out more about your investment preferences, so checks, industries, and geography. Could you discuss more,
Yeah.
please?
Well, I would take even a step back. Like I mentioned, my fellow partners were up in New York. They were seeing overcapitalized, B minus, C plus deals. Just weren't seeing a lot of great stuff up there. And they really wanted to be in early stage. Really wanted to build businesses, help founders turn ideas into actual companies. And I was in California. My first career, I thought I was going to save the world through politics and policy, and it took me 11 years of hanging out with politicians to think this might not be the greatest path to making a huge impact. But as much as I loved California, I was seeing the same thing. It was all, it was chasing unicorns, and it was all overvalued stuff, and it was just throwing billions at companies that might or might never be profitable. And I thought, I really want to experience something else. And at the time, everybody just said, oh, go to, Austin is the place. And I went to Austin, and Austin's great, but I found out it was a lot of people that I knew from California hanging out in the middle of Texas. And it just wasn't exactly what I was looking for. I thought if I'm going to go to Austin, I would just soon stay in Los Angeles. But then I started looking at Florida and started seeing the different vertical. I thought, Florida is just where you go to retire, right? Beaches, Margaritaville, like that's all there really is, right? And then the more that I started looking at it and seeing the different verticals that are up and down the state, it was just really impressive. Ended up running the Regional Chamber of Commerce and the Tech Association, and did a lot of ecosystem stuff. But what we didn't find, what we collectively knew that we didn't have in the state, was early stage capital. And especially as you start to match that up with the verticals I was mentioning, from the space and aerospace industries, gaming, photonics, health and wellness, the list is huge. It's a really impressive place for us to dig in and start investing.
Okay, so are you investing only in Florida-based startups or not?
So we think we're unique because we have we have an early stage Florida thesis, but then we also don't want to tie our hands and say like, oh, I'm sorry, you're in California or Georgia, we can't get involved. Because a lot of the companies, honestly, in this environment, we're talking to companies all around the country and really around the world who say, what we say is we write the missing check. A $2 million check in Florida is actually a runway for an early stage company. Whereas $2 million in San Francisco, how far does that, I always joke and say it's 6 weeks of an electric bill. But we think a $2 million on average, a $2 million investment into an early stage company, especially in Central Florida, we can get them 18 to 24 months down the line. We think we could often get them to commercialization with that little of investment.
Okay, interesting. And have you caught any unicorns so far?
Say that again.
Did you catch any unicorns so far?
Well, as a matter of fact, we have. We don't. If we could turn a $6 million company into a $50 or $100 million company, we think that's pretty exciting. We were actually the first professional money into a vertical agriculture company called Plenty. We tried to get them to set up in Florida, but they wanted to go the traditional route and be in San Francisco. And we always, if the founders really have that passion for some area of the country other than Florida, of course, we're okay with that. The second money in there was Jeff Bezos. Third was Eric Schmidt from Google, and the fourth was SoftBank, and it now has a $1 billion+ valuation. Recently signed a huge deal with Albertsons. It's just amazing to see. They're really at the forefront of taking agriculture and making it, taking it indoors. So it's predictable, it's sustainable, it's beyond organic, and it uses a fraction of the energy and water that traditional farming does. And they're really on the forefront of that. So it was really exciting to see my firm. I wish I could take a little more credit for it, but they did all that well before I had joined the firm. But it's just such an exciting space, and Plenty won't be the only player, but they're certainly a big player in it. The other company that I would also mention, which was Florida-based technology, which we were really excited. We found out, again, I wish I could take more credit for this. They found out about the technology in 2015, and it was patented UV lighting that kills germs and viruses in indoor spaces and with indoor air. They invested in 2016. They stepped up the leadership in 2017, 2018. They got a major contract with the NBA team Orlando Magic in 2019. And then COVID hits in 2020. And everybody said, before COVID, people are like, when's the last time I really got sick? Or should I really be worried about germs and viruses and stuff? And so then after COVID, every country on the planet was calling their office, and Fortune 500 CEOs were stopping by. And that company, because of its success, there's a possibility that it could go. We would probably have looked at a 3 or 4 year runway to acquisition, and now there's talk that it potentially could go public. So it's so exciting to be involved with these companies. We don't say that we're impact investors, but we do say the greater impact our companies make, the greater returns we believe there are. And the idea that we could start to democratize and demonetize food through Plenty, potentially around the world, and the fact that we could bring clean air and clean indoor spaces through Violet Defense, that's just something to be excited about.
Yeah, sounds very exciting and impressive. And so far, one Angora unicorn in your portfolio, right? And a couple of promising startups.
Yeah, we hope there's many more, but especially at the stage that we get involved in, which is worth mentioning. We really we don't mind if they're post revenue, and we certainly don't mind if they're already businesses. But a lot of times, what comes to us are just great ideas, brilliant founders. They have some type of patent or IP, but that's not their expertise. Turning these things into multi-million-dollar companies. These guys and gals have been in a computer lab or a bio lab literally most of their life. They haven't been real entrepreneurs before, and now all of a sudden we want they're told, you're the CEO and you've got to do this and you've got to build the company, and they're like, wait a minute, my expertise is I'm a technical, I have technical expertise. And so that's where we really step in and we say, hey, we're gonna partner, we're going to fund you, we're gonna write amazing terms. We want you to have a huge upside, but then we're gonna help you bring all of the people into the organization to help escalate and scale that level of technology. The piece that I would say about Florida, which is so fat, which I don't know if it was just probably more dumb luck than anything, but when I came here and started to see what we call the I-4 corridor, really from Gainesville with the University of Florida, out to Daytona area with Embry-Riddle University. You come down here, UCF, FIT, Full Sail, Rollins. To the south of us is Florida Poly. Over on the Tampa side is the University of South Florida. you really start to look at 10, 11 plus universities, and the amount of intellectual property coming out of those universities is so impressive. And I think places like California and Florida used to cherry pick those founders or even just cherry pick those ideas, and then they would take them back to those two areas. And now, like I said before, in this environment, people don't want to to necessarily go to those states, or they don't want to have to go through the funding process to go to those states. And there's really more, and it's even hard for locals to really figure out, but there's more intellectual property, there's more ideas coming at us right now than we have the ability to fund. I mean, we have like a triage list, and we're jumping on these companies as we can. Literally, as we continue to fundraise, there's just literally, I think it's one of the most prolific, undercapitalized regions in the entire country, and it's just a great it's a great state to live in. It's a great business environment. What I love here is that the people that have come to Florida or stay in places like Orlando, where I'm at, it's because they enjoy it. They like it. Like, if you don't like it, go somewhere else. Where I grew up in Los Angeles, so many people would badmouth Los Angeles because they were there for the industry. They didn't go there for the city or for the state. It was, I want to be a part of the entertainment industry. I want to be a part of such and such industry. And they felt that they had to be there. And that's what I don't see in Florida. People are like, hey, I'm in Florida because I love it. And literally, we have people from all over the country, and we have people from all over the world. And it's just such a great mixture of cultures and ideas and ideologies. It's really it's something.
Sounds really interesting, and the way you are helping literally to build up and to develop the local innovative ecosystem, right? And it's a huge potential there, right?
It is, and that's where I got frustrated. Literally, for the past probably for the first 8 years or so that I was here in Florida, I sat around with politicians and bureaucrats, and we'd all say, yep, that's early stage capital. We need more of that. And we'd be like, yep, Bob and Susan, yep, we need, that's what we need. And then 6 months later, we would pick up the conversation, but nobody was structuring it. Governments and EDCs, that's not their job. They have their job, and they have an important role, but they're not going to raise a fund, and they're not going to nurture these companies. They can cheerlead for the region. They can make sure that there's good and fair and equitable policy in the region, but they can't put a fund together. And that's when I met Dave Scalzo and Terry Berlin, the founders and two managing partners of Kirenaga. They said, we believe in Florida. We want to lift up early stage, pre-commercialized, pre-revenue companies. And we don't want to trickle money in. We don't want to put 50,000 and then 100,000. We want to write whatever they need. If it's $1 million, if it's 2, if it's 3, we want to get them back off of fundraising, take those technical founders, get them back in the lab, do whatever it is to take their ideas to commercial. And then from our perspective, we know, I don't know, most everybody around here. So if you have a great company and a great idea, and now you're ready to pitch it, we can get you in front of the right people. And of course, we can't make them, guarantee that they're going to buy your service or buy your product, but we can make that, with that partnership, we can get you to that place and do our best to try to guarantee your success. And so it's just and it's great. And that's why I brought up the Violet Defense story. Is here we took that technology that was just struggling, lifted up the leadership, capitalized the company, and then got them in front of Orlando Magic. And the Magic goes, of course, why would we not want this technology?
The magic happens, and the magic literally happens.
and the magic happens. Now they're expanding their training facility, and they're putting the Violet Defense technology all over the training facility, and all these other great conversations are going on around that company. So it's a great example of what we're trying to do with all of our portfolio.
Great. An interesting question, what would be curious for our startups to know is how to approach you. How do you select the startups, and what are your investment, let's say, approaches?
Right. Yeah, we're usually like I said, we're usually the early stage. We're usually somewhere between $500,000 to 3 to 4 to 5 million, depending on what they're looking for. What I loved about Kirenaga is they would lead deals. They were happy to co-invest with other folks or let other people into the deal. But then they also had the conviction to say, no, this is a winner. I don't know if you want to invest, but we're going to move ahead on this company. And so literally we get referrals all the time. And I always tell people, they're more than welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn. We'd love to see something that's, a little bit more than something on a napkin. We always love to see if there's a patent or if there's, some type of intellectual property there, something that's proprietary. We're not usually in the, if something needs heavy FDA approval, if it's like an app, which is kind of the app of the week. We're not in really commercial CPG goods. So there's a variety of things, but if something evolutionary, if something can scale, if something does have that impact, if something is significant, and it's not just about, here's how we're going to, kind of work the market and make a little money. But if something really has something interesting, it catches our eye it quick. One of our last investments was a company called Space Perspective, female founder. They're based at Kennedy Space Center, which is about 45 minutes that way from me. And they're taking traditional weather balloon technology. They're making it the size of a football field. And then they're developing a pressurized capsule that holds 8 passengers and then a pilot. And literally that balloon, that ship, will take people to the edge of space. Be able to take grandparents will be able to take grandkids to upwards of 100,000 feet and be able to give them that overview effect of the Earth that the astronauts always talked about. Just to be able to get that close to space, but not have to do it on a rocket and with rocket fuel, literally going to the edge of space at 12 miles an hour. So that company gets referred to us, and we're like, it's in our backyard, female founder, amazing. The company holds the world's record for high altitude, taking an astronaut to high altitude with a weather balloon. They took a guy to 136,000 feet, and he jumped with a parachute. You can see it on just look up Space Perspective on YouTube, and you can watch the whole flight. Just amazing. So something like that comes our way, and we go, we're all in. They opened up pre-registrations, and they had thousands of people saying that they would want to do this. And now they've actually opened up pre-ticket sales. They're probably still a couple of years off, but this is real technology. This isn't something they really have to develop. Like, this is already, this is all proven technology. So I love what Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic are up to, but that's going to need a lot more development. Virgin Galactic's been they've been selling tickets for 16 years or something. So I can't wait to go up in the Space Perspective balloon. So
it sounds amazing. But literally, if I'm a startup and I want to reach you, would you consider somebody who is just messaging you on LinkedIn or using your mail or whatever?
Yeah, referrals are always great, but it's it comes from all over the place. Certainly if it's somebody, if somebody comes to you and you refer it to me, but no, you can come direct to our website. Is just Kirenaga.com, and we have an entry form on there. You can message me on LinkedIn. That's what I was saying before. We like to see, if you're able to say quickly, what where you're from, and we don't care where you're from, especially from the international community. Florida is a wonderful place to, if you have a product that's anywhere, from Europe to Asia to wherever, and you want to get it into the U.S., Florida is a great place to set up
an office.
Yeah, we have our last investment was a company called STEMRAD. The technology really came from Israel, and now their U.S. headquarters is in Tampa. and they're doing anti-radiation technology to keep doctors healthy during surgeries. But then that same technology will keep astronauts, keep radiation away from astronauts in the future as well. So that's a perfect example where we're like, it's amazing business opportunity. It's going to save people's lives. It's here in Florida. We didn't care where it was developed, but if you want a U.S. headquarters, like do it here. Tampa's a wonderful, Orlando's great, Tampa's great, the Space Coast is great. There's all these little sub ecosystems around Florida. The ecosystem around Gainesville and around the University of Florida, Alachua County, it's just amazing stuff going on up there. So it's really about where you want to be, the environment you want to be in, the culture you want to be in, what vertical your company is in, and we help guide all of that. And, but yeah, we're always one of the other.
You seem to be really open for any kinds of communication, and that sounds exciting.
We really are, because at the end of the day, if I think you have something real, you're doing something really interesting, but for whatever reason it doesn't seem like it's going to fit that well in our portfolio, I'll be like, hey, I know the rest of the capital community around the country, or I know the incubators or the accelerators or potential partners or people that are working on potentially collaborative technology. So it's easy to kind of triage that stuff and just be like, hey, go this way, go that way, or we really like what you're up to. Let's plan a call for a week or two and let's go through, and at that point we love to see a slide deck. Just the other couple of things, like we don't, because we see so much stuff, like we never sign NDAs early on. So we always just say, like, take out the secret sauce. Let's talk about the vertical. Let's talk about what you think. We could have enough of a conversation without trying to sign NDAs. But a lot of time, sometimes founders, they've just been told, oh, don't do anything without an NDA, and we're like,
sure. But how many startups reach you approximately per month? How many deals are you looking in general per month, let's say?
I should know the exact number. I want to say I probably get approached once or twice a day, and then depending on the kind of the stage and where they're at, I look at it and I go, who is it? Is it, how real does it look? Is it something that would fit with us? And I escalate it quickly if I think it's going to fit well into our portfolio. And then if it doesn't, I just try to quickly say, hey, keep working on this, or, I know somebody who you should talk to. So I try to handle that pretty quick.
Approximately around 60 startups per month, something like this.
Yeah, no, I would say we're seeing at least that many. We're getting referrals and we're getting pitches, and then it really just depends on, because we don't say, oh, well, we're gonna interview 50, because we really try to, if it doesn't seem like something that we would get involved in, we're gonna try not to spend the time on it, but we want to help nurture whatever that is. And so
in what form do you prefer to get the information about the startup? Is it one pager or short facts or pitch deck or everything initially?
Yeah, that's a great one. Some type of very short executive summary is really helpful, because think, if you're on this side of the table and all of this stuff, we're trying to, talk with current investors. We're talking with future investors. We're talking with our portfolio companies. We're talking with all the companies that we're already in the middle of due diligence of. And then there's that rush of new ideas. And so it's just, it makes for a hectic day. There's a ton of articles out there where, VCs are burned out, because at the end of the day, like, then you're freaked out thinking that you're going to miss a deal, or you're going to miss an email, and somebody else is going to jump on something that that we should have gotten involved in. But yeah, some type of short, here's who I am, the vertical that we're in, the problem that we're trying to solve. You get into just like the real basics of it. A lot of times, the sad part is that the technical founders are so brilliant, they're putting all like technical specs into that initial pitch, and you're like, it's just, at that stage, it's just too much. Like, who's the customer? what problem are you solving? How big do you think the market is for that? Where are you coming from? Do you have any beta clients? What have the results been? That kind of stuff. Real, almost like bullet points, like jump into that. And then to have at least, I'd say, it just doesn't need to be lengthy, like 8, 9, 10-page slide deck would be great. Sometimes you see those 30, 40-page. It's almost like you should have, I would say, to have like 2 or 3 different slide decks. One where you're trying to catch our attention, and then as we like, we'll then all of a sudden we have a meeting where you go, hey, this is really interesting. Do you have like a technical slide deck? Oh yes, that's great. Because at that point, we do want to see the 30, 40, page slide deck. We want to get into the nuts and bolts of what you're doing. The other one, have you raised any money? Do you have, what does your cap table look like? Do you have angel investors? Was a valuation set? Was a valuation set? What are those terms look like? And that's what we're really trying to educate people these days, because what we've seen too often with early stage, whether they're being taken advantage of or not, who knows? But a lot of times, angel will come in and say, "Oh, here's 50,000. I want 40% of the company," or just some, relatively very small amount of money. And a lot of times, these founders are literally, starving to death because they've put all of their time and effort into trying to lift these deals up, and so they're like, well, no one else is offering me 50,000, so what the heck? But if you've signed to onus, terms like that, sometimes it's just harder for VCs to get in later stage because of how certain things are structured. So just be careful, if you're, and that's another one too. If you think you have something, you're starting to get that type of interest, that's a perfect time to reach out to folks like us and be like, hey, I have 3 or 4 angels that are asking to put in 100 or 200,000. They're asking for X% of the company. Is this something you guys would do? Are you interested? Would you recommend that I take these terms? And usually we're like, don't, sometimes there's really good angel money, and companies do need to raise that like 1, 2, 300,000 to really start to help validate their technology. That's one of the other things I would share too, is we say all of our investments are technically validated, but usually not commercialized. We will take the risk on the commercialization, but we won't take the risk on if the technology does or doesn't work. Like, we have to know that what you're doing has been proven and can be proven by a third party.
Sounds exciting. And the next step when startup is pitching in front of you, what are the main things that you're looking at that moment, or main questions, or what are your main criteria when startup is pitching, when you're taking the decision?
Getting involved in these deals is almost it's almost more serious than a marriage. We're gonna you're going to come together and be, and need to work together, and you want to have that relationship. We had a call the other day, if people are acting arrogant, if it just doesn't seem like a person that you would want to spend time with, if they don't seem coachable, at the end of the day, the founders own the companies. They're going to do, generally what they want, but we want to know that we're going to have a really, give and take relationship. And if we have some advice that'll certainly be listened to, we're not going to mandate anything. And so it's some of those softer skills. We're looking at, does the technology work? Is it answering a big question? Can it be commercialized? Those are mandatory. But then it's like, who is this person? Who's on the team? Who else? We like to see, if it's just a one-person team, we're not, huge on that. We won't automatically turn it away, but have you recruited 2 or 3 other people believe in you and believe in this idea? That's also very important. But it is that, congenial conversation that we're really looking to have. And that can go because if something's kind of like, well, it seems like a cool opportunity, but they seem really difficult to work with. That's the thing that knocks it, can definitely knock it into the no category.
Great, clear. And for the last question is, maybe you can give some piece of advice to some startups how to raise better and to be more successful in raising investments, particularly maybe for in your case or in general.
Yeah. I think, especially at the stage that we play in, there's a certain. I've been given this advice lately. There's a certain street credibility. There's a certain somewhere you feel really good about yourself, saying I'm bootstrapping and I'm a founder and I'm in the startup space and whatever, and it's cool until you've been doing that for like 4 or 5, 6 years. Like, the market is moving so fast these days. If you had a cool idea last year, I don't know how cool it is this year. Like, if you're working on the same thing and not iterating and not getting those beta clients, not, starting to, see where revenue would come from, then, you need to switch gears. And there's enough people out there, through incubators and accelerators. I guess I would just caution people from, being a tech bro for too long. Like, you gotta, is this real? And are you going to solve, are you going to do something, or do you just want to, hang out and drink beer at the co-working space and, say, oh, I'm in tech. Like, those, to me, those are like, those are very kind of two different groups that are easy to, kind of weed out. And if you are serious, then you should start to develop relationships with, the best time to develop a relationship with the VC is before you need money. Like, be like, hey, I'm working on some really big stuff. I'm going to hit you up in I think I need about 6 months to bring something together. Hey, can I call you in September? I'd be like, yeah, let's schedule the meeting now. And then don't be afraid of good VCs that are on the early stage side, like us. I think we can really help escalate, you having 60-70% of a multi-million-dollar company is a lot better than you having 100% of zero. Right. So develop the relationships early, and then start to think about what is it, how much would you need to raise in an honest perspective. Don't think, well, I think they'll say no to 3 million, so I'm only going to ask for 300,000. Or just be like, no, I think I can knock it out of the park with $4 million, and here's how I would spend that. We love that. Think big, think like a Californian. You just don't have to
think big, yeah.
Yeah, think big, think global, solve global problems, and do it in great places like headquarter in great places like Florida.
Very nice piece of advice, and thank you so much for your time today. And that we had an interview today with Jim Thomas, from a partner from Kirenaga Partners. And see you at our next Unicorn Events Live. And anything you would like to add for our listeners, you are very welcome.
Well, I just, love what you guys are doing, especially from an international perspective. There's so many problems to solve these days, and I think the less that we look to our politicians, and the more that we look to brilliant innovators and ecosystems around the world, and start to solve those problems, I think that's what I just encourage. And it doesn't matter if you're in Africa or Alaska, like, you can be wherever, be in a culture and be in an environment where it's positive and you can contribute. But then, don't just solve the problem that's down the street. Start to think about global issues. But just, love the events, and so happy to be a judge with you guys. Keep up the great work.
Thank you so much, Jim. I'm looking forward to see you at our Unicorn Battles in Western Europe soon.
Yeah. We'll see you guys soon.
Have a nice day.